Okay, so let's go and look for a block. Ideally, we're looking for a Cooper S block, but I know they're pretty rare things. Come on, behind the scenes, we've got a small collection of kind of leftover blocks from when we used to build engines more regularly here. So we've got these ones, what's that, A+. You see the ribbon on the block. So that's a later one. It's got a different distributor drive clamp on there as well. So you don't really want to use an A+. That's too new. So early 80s onwards. A+, A+. Right, well that's an earlier block. So that's an A series, what we call a mini block. So 1275 GT perhaps. And it's got a different distributor drive hole there. See, it's smooth on here as well, and you've got the different alternator mount. But that's not an S block. So the S block has got tappet chest covers on the back, as per the 998. The other sign is, of course, they've got studs rather than bolts to hold the main caps on. So, ooh, this looks good. It's got the tappet chest covers there, so like on the small bore blocks. But I can see straight away that's a 970. That's a 970 S block. Still, it's a pretty rare thing. Put that one back. This looks like the fancy rack. Just a regular mini block, I think that one. Yeah, solid on the back. Ooh, struck gold. What's that? Tappet chest covers. Thick flange rather than thin flange. No engine number, so I don't know if that's a 1275 or not. But it has got the studs, look, so it's missing a cap. That looks like an S block. AEG 312 is upside down. So I've had a quick look through all the other blocks here, and I think that's most likely to be a 1275 S block. But let's get it out into the workshop and have a better look at what we've got.
Hi there, right, Stephen's just brought this block out for us. This is obviously Cooper S block, as is ascertained from around in the storage area. We'll just do a couple of little checks first, just to be sure it's usable. First one we need to know is make sure it hasn't had a lump of metal taken off the top. So we'll just do a dimension check across the top here, top to bottom. Should be 8.890, and we've got on this one, so about 20 thou off it. 8.870, so we can take another flick off there. That won't give us a problem. Biggest problem with this block is we found it out, it's definitely an S block because it's got the studs on. Unfortunately, we've got the centre main cap is missing, so we'll have to make a steel one for that one and then line bore the mains. Won't be a problem, can sort that out. Next job, let's have a look at the bore size. Ideally we want to bore this out, so it's going to end up at 1293, so we want 2.800. Oh dear, this one we've got, let's just convert it to metric. Oh, this is 73.5 and badly worn, so we're going to have to bore this out, fit liners, and then bore it back to +20. Once that's been done, we can then face the block, put a steel cap on, line bore the block, and then we'll have a good S block to work with. We've just polished a couple of the sections up on the top face of the block where these can actually crack. First one is from the 11 stud hole. They sometimes crack just here or here. This one's good. Because this one's already 1380, we thought we'd give it a little polish up across the centre two bores, because they do have a tendency to crack just there, but this one's a good one again. So that's good. The other places to check obviously are all around, make sure. Just here's one. But again, this looks good. Again, just generally look over to make sure there's no threads pulled out. Again, looks all good. Flick him down onto the bottom face. Again, we know we've got a cap missing. We've got to make a steel cap for that. We've then got to line bore. We'll put some new studs in, new nuts. We'll most probably drill these out to 5/16, just as a matter of course. As you can see, it's really grim inside. It's been standing on there for quite a few years, so we'll need to have it chemically cleaned. And then to the other side, another really important one is the engine stabiliser bars. Again, these look very, very good, so that's good. Again, round here, all good. This one's already been drilled for either 4-bolt or 3-bolt pump, so that's going to save us a job. This one is what we call a thick flange block. The early Cooper S's, this face between here was sort of a third of the thickness, and they used to get a lot of flexing problems on the engine sump gasket face, which gave oil leaks, so we're okay there. Tappet chest covers obviously denote it's an S block. You need now then, Stephen, to dig around the crankshaft rack and find a Cooper S crankshaft to go with it. Right then, here we go. We've dug up a couple of crankshafts here for what we're going to use in Project 63. And to start with, we've got a very unusual crankshaft here. This is what people term as the South African crank. 70mm stroke, normally comes with 1 3/4 big ends. This one's been ground down to Cooper S big ends. It's been cross drilled on all the big ends and mains. It's also had what we call the ice effect machined into here. So it's basically a cutter that's put down to remove metal away from the big end. So you'll see 2 cuts here, 2 here, 2 here, 2 here. So this one, 70mm stroke, Cooper S big ends, cross drilled, wedged and iced. We've then got the Cooper S rods. These are standard Cooper S rods, AEG 625, also fitted to the sprites. What we'd do is we'd fettle these, get rid of all the sharp corners, etc. Set of ARP rod bolts. These will take a standard set of Omega gudgeon pins from the die-cast pistons.
These are the standard length rods, so 5 3/4 inch.
They are 5 3/4,
Is that
yes.
going to work with the short stroke crank?
Yes, well what'll happen there is obviously this crank is 11mm shorter than a standard 1275 crank. So if we put this into a standard 1275 block, the pistons will be 5 3/4 mil down the bore. So what we'd have to do is dress the top of the block off to bring the pistons where we need them for deck clearance. So yes, we can get away with that. It would be nice to put some 6-inch rods in, because then obviously we wouldn't have to dress anything off. Next option is, Stephen's found this crankshaft. It's what we use on the balancing machine for balancing customers' flywheels or dampers. As you'll see, it's marked up there master because it's the master crank that's actually been balanced, and we use it quite often on the crankshaft balancer. But seems quite a shame to use a £2,000 crank on a balancing machine when we could put it into our own engine. So this is option 2. So 81.3, large counterbalance, cross drilled. This one will have, as you'll note there, it's got the long keyway in it. Also hollow drilled on the big ends to get rid of weight. With this one, obviously, we would have to use S rods again. So we could use the S rods that we were going to use with that, or we could use a set of Arrow MED con rods. These ones that we have made now come with fully floating little ends for the standard die-cast pistons with the 13/16 pins. We're only going to run this engine at 10.8 to 1, so die-cast will be fine. If we were going 11.5, 12 to 1, then we would opt for the forge piston, but not necessary to 10.8. These little marks here, it looks like it's where it's been put in the vise, or it's, I don't honestly know what it's been in a 3-jaw chuck at some point in time. Look, there's the jaw marks there, there and there. So 3-jaw chuck at some point in time. But again, we can clean that up. We'll make good on that one. So there we go. We've got 2 options here then. Don't know what everybody thinks, but we've got the steel used crankshaft with the new set of Arrow rods, or we've got this quite rare South African crankshaft that's freshly machined all over, just needs heat treating with the S-rods. What do we think?